Hey, what's up, Toby? We made another week.
Yeah, here we are, live and kicking. Good
I
to see
know.
you.
It's the Process Step podcast, everyone.
That's right, where we talk about process and other things that we try to relate
That's
to
true.
process in some circular way.
That is true.
One of the things we were just touching on, as we often do before we start recording, is one of our favorite concepts, Dunning-Kruger effect,
Yeah.
and specifically, it's related to the world of advice giving.
Okay.
When somebody else is telling us about, a conundrum that they're dealing with in their personal or professional life, we often think of it as an objective perspective, but oftentimes it's just that we're not as close to the problem. It's not our
Yeah.
life that
Yeah.
is wrestling through this work issue or navigating a complex client issue. And you and I have talked about this
Yep.
at times, like, man, I'm just in the slog of it.
Yeah.
It may be a great client, maybe a great project, and it's painful. And sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
It's a difficult client with a project we didn't want, but we're in it and we've got to deliver. And so the piece that I wanted to talk about with you, and just as we often do, but it's this idea about proximity to the problem.
Yeah.
When we're deep in it, we appreciate all the minutiae, and sometimes we simply can't gain perspective.
Yeah.
And if you're not in it and you sit outside at that theoretically objective perspective,
Yep.
you can oversimplify.
Yeah.
And so somewhere in between, in the thick of the battle and then sitting on the hill overwatching the war, what's that right perspective? And who do we need to make better decisions? Maybe that's what it is. How do we effectively assess a problem if you can be too close or too far away? So I don't know if you've got a current client or a recent client project, but this is kind of one of those things I've thought about because we try those two perspectives. Tricky.
It's interesting. At one of my last employers, I found a way to solve a problem that would reduce like tickets or like problems that we were having in the system. I think it was like it was between 40 and 60%. So basically cutting these like trouble tickets that they were getting or trouble data set.
Dude, it's a universal problem, right?
Yeah,
Everybody
like
has their business process that works, something that doesn't work.
Yep.
We report it.
Yeah. And and it was in my area of expertise. And so I pitched it a couple times. I actually even like borrowed, begged, and stole to get some DBAs to go and write some stuff so that I could capture the information in order to figure it out. Right.
Sure.
And then I found out it was going to be 2 weeks of dev effort or something like that, or 3 weeks of dev effort or whatever. Right. So somewhat insignificant, but also like in the backlog, and also, saving a 100-person team, 50% of their tickets in this one area. So
pause for a second before we get to the solution. What you've identified is we have a process problem in the technology. We can reduce the problems that it's creating by half.
Yep.
And it's going to cost us approximately 4 weeks of development.
Yep.
With a $200,000 developer,
sure,
or $4,000 a week. The solution that you're describing sounds like $16,000. But this is a problem affecting how big a team?
I think there was about 100. Now it was an offshore team, right?
Okay.
So I think it was
make
like,
sure I'm running the numbers because I'm trying to think about the value equation as you're describing it.
So I borrowed some DBAs in order to prove it out.
Yeah.
Then I did prove it out. Then I did the analysis on it to prove it out that it was actually, in fact, and really what it was is it was doing a system check. Right. And so putting in a system check to say, hey, look, before you flag this error for the team, just check to see if it truly is an error.
Yeah.
Or not. Right.
That was your solution.
And like that, again, that is an oversimplification, but that's how I can explain it so people can hear it.
Yeah.
So again, I'm close to it. I communicate it all the way up to the C-suite and they don't care because it's not their problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the labor offshore is cheap. And so it doesn't, the 16,000, whatever, 20,000 that we would spend on this you could have 3 people for that in offshore. And you're like, yeah, but
I mean, what listeners can't hear is the look on your face, which is like, the love of God. How do I explain that this is just a fundamental thing,
yeah. And
Oh,
it was almost like, that's not my problem. And my problem is, is top line revenue growth.
yeah.
So unless you're coming to me with revenue growth, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. So you could have and maybe you did arrive at $1. How much does this cost us a month to solve the tickets that we could avoid for a $16,000 investment?
Yeah,
And so,
I just didn't understand it. So like I just kept bringing it up and they're like, no. And it just kept getting like pushed to the side. And you're like, and it bugs me to this day because it's still there. And it's a software problem. It's not an AI problem. It's a throw someone on it, get it solved, like get some wins, right? Like, but it does go back to just our like, I was close to it and it was, and it was a problem in my kind of immediate area with my immediate like ICs, individual contributors. And if you went up a level, they cared less. And the closer you get to the top, don't get
right. What's so funny, even as you're saying that, this is such a good example because it wasn't that they oversimplified it at the highest level.
Yeah.
It's that this didn't rise to the level of their concern.
Yeah.
Which is a different situation,
Yeah.
It's kind of like you spill something, you're like, I'll clean it up later.
Yeah.
And then after a while, you just get used to walking around it.
Yeah.
Or I don't know about your kids, but when mine were little, they started disrobing as soon as they hit the door, if not far on the way home from school. But you get through the front door and there's a whole pile of stuff. And it would, in their mind, it was totally fine to ignore it, maybe forever.
Yeah.
They didn't need everything for the next day of school.
Yep.
And so, we have a physical proximity, both understanding, but also like, how much pain is it causing us?
Yeah.
And if that pain doesn't radiate deeply enough, then the question is, how else do we gain visibility to it? And see where that's super frustrating because it was a real problem that had a very real solution.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like I could go to the database and pull a query and just say, hey, look, here's how much we would have saved this week. Now, what's interesting is let's take this from the other side, right? You and I, we do SaaS delivery a lot of times.
Yeah, right.
We've done implementations, change management. What has always been so interesting to me in this space is that the executives have to fight oftentimes more than I would probably know, right? This is where I oversimplified their world as far as getting budget.
Yeah.
Right. Carving out time. But once the budget for whatever your new shiny software is approved, like most C-suite executive, high upper level management people, just like, they're like nowhere to be found.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And the hard part is like, it's because, that'll be easy to solve that.
Yeah. It is funny how many problems get validated. Let's make it a project.
Yeah.
This is an initiative. And then with the new data, that decision maker is no longer in the room.
Yeah.
So they thought they handed off a very clean charter.
Yep.
Which is another way to say this.
Yeah.
Right. Go forth and make the world a safer, kinder, gentler place.
Yeah.
But that edict doesn't necessarily make it so.
Yeah, for sure.
Now it's super interesting. That example, Chris, is a really hard one because it's a half full, half empty, almost kind of perspective where if it wasn't about producing revenue, it didn't matter.
Yep.
And yet one might have argued, or, if we could go back in time, you might say instead, we're squandering, 5 people per month doing these tickets. And those people instead could be doing this revenue generating activity. I often think about a lot of these are trying to, and this is from a change management lens.
Yeah.
How do we help people see the value in
Yeah.
proposed change?
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of this comes down to just not knowing who your customer is. And
who was your customer in that example?
it would have been an internal customer, but the reality is like, if we're in business, you always have a customer.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, the reality is oftentimes, and unfortunately, I think we've swung the pendulum way to we're serving these, we're creating stakeholder value, right? Or shareholder value, right? Now the reality is like, that just sounds like there's memes that go around where it's like, when I grow up, I just want to increase shareholder value. You're like, that just sounds so terrible. But the reality is like, I do think that like we have forgotten who the customer is, and the customer has become the almighty dollar.
Oh, dude. Yeah. It does feel that way at large.
Yeah.
I was having this conversation about a Main Street business recently.
Yeah.
How the whole energy and vibe of the experience had changed.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're talking it through, what became more evident was, well, they used to be locally owned.
Oh, yeah.
And they've been part of a roll-up. And I don't know, here in the Portland area, I've seen that.
Yeah.
It's been true of a lot of traditional Main Street things, like body shops went through a big roll-up.
Yeah.
They're now held by a series of private equity,
Yeah.
And it makes sense strictly from a dollars and cents.
Yep.
But in terms of, the service model and thinking about who is your customer.
Yep.
It has all become about the dollar.
Yeah.
Instead of about the development of the people that serve your customers every day.
Yeah.
Or about your local brand.
Yeah.
With a certain amount of mass, the relationships we lose sight of the relationships. Maybe that's the best way to say it. The big company, the less they value those frontline relationships, simply because they don't drive the big wheel.
Yeah. And I think you lose a little bit of your soul as well. Right. Like there's something about us as a species where we want to be creative and we want to support.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to the dollar, because the dollars, it can be really unclear, right? Because like in my first example, it could be, look, I'm going to save you a bunch of time that we can reassess. Right. Like in my second example, it's like, look, I need you here because I need your authority to implement this piece of software. Because if I don't have your authority, people are going to complain and you're going to spend a little bit more money and you're going to get a much worse output because I need you to hold that place of authority while this stuff is completed. And so like, I look at like many of my successful implementations, there's someone with authority that's holding that gap and listening to the people that are doing the implementation so that they know how to support. And I think that that's the key, right? Where it's like when we go into other people's job with curiosity, right?
Yes.
We do two things. We hurt our ego, right? Because we learned that we don't know what they were doing.
Right. Our assumptions are wrong.
We give up authority to the community that can actually make it better, right? And I think, opinions here. Yeah. I think a lot of businesses have lost the sense of community because it's come down to private equity and numbers. And it's just, you're like, man, it's just, and so you get a lot of people that are our age that are spinning out. They're like, I'm just tired of this corporate world.
It's true. I've chatted with, and I've just come to describe them as corporate refugees, but full of folks in the last, 4 to 6 months that had enjoyed a lot of success. They knew that very traditional career path that a lot of Gen Xers plus or minus have been told, work hard in school, get into a good college,
Yep.
get your degree, and then happily ever after.
Yep.
But these corporate refugees, for all of the kung fu they've developed inside of large publicly traded
Yep.
multinationals, or
Yep.
there's a lot of sense of identity tied up with
Yep.
getting your way up, and tackling bigger and bigger problems. And yet now they're raising their hand and saying, I want to tackle really small problems in my community where I'm
Yeah.
providing services to somebody that I might have to bump
Sure.
into at the grocery store.
Sure.
So with that, I want to turn this from sometimes I feel, Chris, like it's a bitch session, and that's manner it started out. I've been grinding on this, but Chris, let me ask you though. I personally have a lot of really good experiences with service providers that are very small shops, because their business identity and their personal identity are so tightly linked, they can't
Yep.
separate.
Yeah.
And so all of their service quality is a direct reflection on how they themselves, want to be perceived and valued as a
Yep.
service provider, right?
Yep.
Their reputation matters a lot.
Yep.
There's also a place where that gets in the way,
Oh, yeah.
that can hinder growth. It can
Oh,
make
yeah.
conversations
For sure.
difficult. And so I was just starting to think, as you were sharing some of your examples, what is that right-sized organization that seems to do a good job of balancing the interests of employees, customers, and shareholders?
Yeah.
You're right. The pendulum has swung too far. It's all about shareholder right now.
Yep.
And we feel that at the gas pumps, and we feel that in our retirement accounts, and
Yep.
a lot of the legislation that doesn't feel transparency. There's a
Yeah.
lot of parts that just
Yep.
feels like money and assets are all that matter.
Yeah.
But do you have I'm thinking of one of my own, but I'm just curious, do you have a organization that you've done business with or that you admire that seems to be a right-sized, healthy, functioning actor in the community?
I don't know if it's the size of the business or if it's who the leader puts themselves around. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And where I go, and I don't know how Berkshire Hathaway runs, but where I go is like, look, Berkshire Hathaway was, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger,
Yeah. For
and
decades.
15 people just crunching, they're essentially like a really fancy accounting group. Like that's, you know what
Totally.
I mean? But like,
Yeah.
they knew who they were and they didn't
Yeah.
deviate.
Yeah.
And so, and yet they're $1 billion company and they're driving it from, Omaha, Nebraska.
Right.
And yet there's other times where I think people want to be creative and kind of outdo the market,
Right.
and the creativity doesn't necessarily lead to customer value. And so I think that's where people get confused. Like we talked a little bit about mergers and acquisition last time. We're getting synergies.
Yeah.
You're like, and if you compare major mergers and acquisitions, HP and Compaq, which was one that was really a long time ago. Let's not talk about how long ago. It's funny. It's funny that just came to my mind as like the last merger and acquisition. But
He's in your backyard there in Boise.
yeah, that's true. But we do have, you have these mergers and acquisitions that in theory, financially on the spreadsheet should lead to synergies,
Right.
which they just don't.
Yeah. It's funny, Chris, because I love that you went to Berkshire Hathaway, who traditionally is one of the companies I admire most.
Yeah.
Not strictly because they were innovative, but to your point, they were disciplined.
They just knew who they were.
Discipline is hard.
Yeah.
And for my own part, I was just thinking about, I had crashed into my garage door, and for those of you that haven't had to replace a garage door, it's shockingly expensive. But I had 3 different service providers come out. They're all in market.
Yep.
And I can't speak to their ownership structures, but what was so interesting was that my initial question was, how can you fix this? Not how can I cut you a great big fat check?
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because I was
That's a good
really
approach. I
hoping,
like that approach.
right? Yeah, I've cut off my arm. Is there a way to fix it? Um, and so, but what was so interesting to me was that the group I ended up going with, what I really liked was that um, when I'm talking with the guy in the field,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the person's asking, how do I help Toby assess his problem?
Sure.
And then he even went so far as to say, from a strictly safety perspective, like your door is going to fall.
Yeah, yeah.
The springs that typically counterbalance it are
Yeah, yeah.
broken. And so you've got like a guillotine, buddy. He's like, you can continue to monkey with it, but I don't want it to fall on you or
Yeah,
your
yeah.
kids.
Yeah,
And so he presented it in a way that I could hear what he was saying.
yeah, yeah.
Because to me, it was just a slightly broken garage door. To him, he helped me understand the complexity of the
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he was able to paint a slightly different picture and give me a lens into his perspective with that analogy of a guillotine.
Yeah, yeah.
What I loved about doing work with these guys was that then I said, I need to present a like for like replacement. But then you also told me that, 20 years on, the same money based
Yeah.
on distribution, supply chains, and innovation, the same money I can go, rather than getting the exact same, I can get a improved version
Yeah.
from an alternate supplier.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, yeah.
I could have read the back of it.
Yeah.
And so not only did he help me understand the problem I faced,
Yep.
but he also presented me with options beyond what I may have thought to ask for.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So valuable. And
Yep.
so in a shareholder only world, the right answer would have been, we have an ignorant, not necessarily stupid. We have an ignorant prospect
Yep.
that doesn't understand the alternatives.
Correct.
And so we can come back with a very simple install and we'll maximize our revenue on this
Yeah.
and then moving on because
Yep.
Toby's probably not going to be in the garage door buying business for another 5 or 6 days until he
Yep.
backs into it again. So, but the conversations I had with a couple other competitors, they didn't meet me at that place.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And so he helped me understand his perspective by trying to understand first where I was
Yeah.
at.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's beautiful solutioning that I could also understand because I'm not a garage door expert.
Yeah.
But then this was the piece that I really loved was that when I called in to get updates, they were all super clear about, oh, it's so great that you're working with John,
yeah.
I think was
Yeah, yeah.
John does a great job. He's been with us a long time. I'm not asking him to pump his brakes, or
Yeah.
to pump him up. They're all they're saying is like, we love working with John. You're lucky to get to work with John. So then they call me up and I think that it's about like, dude, where's my check? Because it had been installed. And instead we just realized that we had this little detail that we forgot to install. Is it okay if we swing by? It'll take 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
And they could have done it without telling me.
Mm-hmm.
But what I appreciated, what I took away from that,
Yeah.
it was very polite. They could have just
Yep.
done it from the
Yep.
outside. But what they were also telling me was that we found something that you may not have noticed, but we
Yep.
care about because
Yeah.
we take pride in work.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this perspective, putting so much power at the front lines,
Yeah.
whether it's the person answering the phone to help solve and validate that you've
Yep.
selected a good partner,
Yep.
or the guy in the field that can offer less expensive choices,
Yeah.
knowing that it solves the problem correctly. Like,
Yep.
what an amazing experience to
Yeah.
have. And then even after the check is cut, I think we're done. They're like, oh, wait, there's one more thing. Like, how beautiful is that?
That's great.
Ryder Garage Doors for folks
Yeah.
in the Portland area.
There you
I'll
go.
give them because it really was one of those things that I thought, this is the kind of interaction that I want to have.
Yeah. So
And
here's what's so interesting. As you're telling this story, I'm thinking they took Toby's money. Like they didn't take $100. They didn't take $200. They took thousands of dollars because I too have got a garage door replaced. But like the joy of being serviced, like that is the missing piece in most business process because the focus has been around shareholder equity and not around taking care of the client, whether that's internal or external.
Yeah.
All right, man. We should call it. We went long.
We went long. Perspective taking matters.
I love it.
appreciate chatting with you, sir. Have a good
Thanks,
week.
man. See ya.